Hey golfers, and welcome back to the Second Swing YouTube channel for another edition of our Live at Lunch. Today we got a really fun one. Some new Titleist medals have been released since we were last, I guess, live. So we're going to test them out today. I've also got Master Club Fitter Tyler Fitzel with us here today. And I guess, Tyler, first of all, as we kind of get started here again, talking about Titleist GT drivers, and then maybe get into the fairway woods if we have time today. But Titleist GT, you've obviously been fitting them here in the store now for 5 days, I guess. What have you seen from them? What is so exciting about them? And I guess what are golfers going to get from them out on the golf course?
Well, the first thing I look at with GT is the definition of the GT.
Yeah.
Right. So Titleist is talking about generational technology. So for them, they've introduced a few different aspects that we haven't really seen, and we can talk a little bit about those as we go along. There is a carbon top. There is graphite in here. There is, it doesn't look like it, and that's one of the things they wanted to continue with, was the idea of the Titleist look. So let's keep the Titleist look, but let's change up what's going on underneath the hood, if you will. And there's some really good technology in the face and what's going on behind the face. There's some really good technology in the weighting and what's going on with the weighting. And then the whole idea is like, let's keep the product that looks like Titleist looking like Titleist.
Yeah,
so
that's, I think, what they've noticed over the years is, especially the Titleist loyalists out there, really enjoy the look of Titleist clubs. They've always said that it looks really, it does. It looks really clean. This is going back to TS, TSI, TSR. Everything's looked so clean, so smooth, and they've gone great lengths to not change that, not alter that, despite making some changes under the hood that are going to change things. You know, you talk about the crown. This, I think it's called the thermoform crown, is kind of the tech term of it.
Yes.
But basically just using some different materials to lighten things, and of course that's about distributing weight where it needs to be distributed. So
we noticed personally when I went to hit the new one, I picked up maybe 4 miles an hour of ball speed, and you know that's in just a few hits and some casual testing to it with the new product. But that once we get outside, you know, I'm going to be able to see a little bit more about where that's at, how that's working, and you know, everyone's no one ever comes into a fitting and asks for shorter and crooked.
Yeah,
you know, pretty much. And so like that's the goal of all of the companies. And what Titleist and I'd say Ping is in this category as well. They come out every couple of years with something.
Yeah.
Right. So they've actually been building on this for what they told us about 6 years. They've kind of back with the TS project when it first started, is they were looking at some of these aspects and how to blend that in. And we've heard that from other companies as well. It's like it really just took a long time and a lot of research and development for them to be able to feel comfortable that this is the product that comes out. I
mean, right now, Titleist engineers are probably working on whatever's next in 2 years. You know, they're
or beyond
that.
Yeah,
you're right. I mean, that's where. I mean, it's a long process for these things to come out to us and be available to us. So I'll remind everybody that's watching, if you're subscribed to the channel, you can participate in the chat, and we'd love to hear your thoughts, comments. Some of you have already got a GT in the bag or have one coming. We'd love to hear your thoughts on maybe a fitting that you had, or you know, what kind of numbers you're seeing compared to what you had before. Otherwise, we're going to do some testing, do some hitting, see what we see here, and of course answer any questions you might have as well.
So we're going to start out with the GT2.
Yep.
We're going to hit the 2, the 3, the 4. They're all 9 degrees. We've got a Tensai 1K black 65X. That's standard length, standard setting. And we'll just kind of compare against them. There are different technologies, so let's talk about some of the technologies amongst them. Let's go ahead and hit a few of those and see what we get.
I will say one thing I'll speak on right away in the GTs is, again, the crown, very smooth, very clean looking. But I'd also say I do notice it seems like, again, compared to what I'm used to, it seems like I see the face a little bit more. Like there's, you know, they've got this face design here. It's that they've been using that in the past. They've been using that sort of aerospace titanium or whatever.
Correct.
But that design is kind of, it catches my eyes when I'm looking down at it, which some people might like, some people might not.
That was an introduction in technology that they wanted to use, was more specifically having the score lines to help frame the face. Some of the players on the tour didn't necessarily have kind of a definition, so they would even have lines put on, as an example.
Yeah, they'd add lines or add imagery
and
there.
that absolutely can help introduce what looks like loft or not loft.
Right, depending on maybe you're playing an 11-degree driver already, and
in warm-ups, you were hitting this in warm-ups. You were hitting it pretty well. I really liked some of the things that we were talking about even then. The look of each is a slight bit different, but from the representatives, the reps were talking about how even some of the players on tour, like Max Homa, was playing, he was hitting the 2 or the 3, and they switched it on him, and he didn't know.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I'm a 3 guy. And he said, well, you just, hit
hit the
five of
GT2.
your best shots, and that was the 2. And
yeah, I mean, it does look, this is the 2, and it looks very compact. Looks, it doesn't look like these quote-unquote, the TS2, the TSI2, those were much bigger footprint-wise than this one is. See how much that one turns back around here.
Oh, yeah, it did. Good one.
I think it's still getting italicized spin numbers.
A little bit, yeah.
There's a good one.
That wasn't italicized, and that's pretty close to the same thing there.
Yeah,
so
that one felt pretty darn good. It was
anything
slightly towards toe, but
well, maybe that's it. You just need to hit it better.
You make a good point. Well, that one's not good.
Little pop-up?
Yeah.
Well, you can adjust that tee.
I probably should.
Yeah.
Look at that. I got backspin on the driver.
Oh, let's hit one more.
This one? Oops. This felt pretty good. Yep, there we go. I did have to move the tee down.
Good. Okay.
Let's hope that doesn't turn over too much. Okay.
All right. We'll switch it up, but we'll also talk a little bit about what's going on in here. I'll need that shaft. First, the aerodynamics is one of the things that they've tried to change with.
Yes.
We'll notice from an aerodynamics standpoint, the curvature on this is very important because what it can do is it can actually raise and lower the center of gravity on the back. But on this, the weight is kind of a bit more recessed than previous models. So we've had on the 2 model, TS2, TSI2, and TSR, we've had the weight here on the back, right? Whereas this has allowed them with the aerodynamics to kind of put that weight even further back, which really helps in MOI or directional control with that. So that's one of the main things that they have with the 2. They've also changed up the face. So their face technology, what they're talking about, is a little bit more individualized. It was in the prior model, the TSR, but it's even more designed to try to be forgiving across the entire face, and that's for all the models. But it's a bit more, the dispersion gets maybe a little tighter because their ball speeds are better across the face.
Yeah.
So the GT tends to be more of the forgiveness aspect if we're talking about a little bit more of the forgiving model between the 3 at this point. We're going to go to the GT3 next.
So what I'm curious is going to be how this looks in comparison to the 2 I just hit, because that's been the feedback that I've heard from golfers, from fitters as well, is that they look so similar that sometimes, like, you could play that trick you just mentioned on golfers probably and hand them a GT2 and they might think it's a 3.
Well, and so actually, if we think about, talk about a 3 for a quick second, so the TSR 3, we had the weight track that was in the back here.
Yeah.
And now that's moved up front. Aerodynamics is a part of this, and the weight track in the back versus the front now is different. So aerodynamically, they've been able to take that weight and move it forward because of the thermoform top, which even from this sounds a bit more metallic. They try to make it sound a bit more metallic.
Sure.
And that was the whole point, was if you didn't know that there's a carbon top on the crown of the club, it's like you're not going to be able to tell with lines on it. So you had to kind of understand the technology behind it. What that allowed them to do is that they have split mass technology. They'd be able to move the weight that they save from the top, being able to put it into different places on the bottom.
Yeah.
And more specifically with this, it enclosed the weight so that there wasn't that it wasn't open air. It didn't have aerodynamic issues. It wasn't.
Right.
It was a drag thing. So this will be interesting because I feel like this is probably the one that people will gravitate more to if you're looking for adjustability.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's you have the sliding weight, and you have the SureFit hosel is, in terms of adjustability, I mean, it's elite, right, for a fitter or for anybody that wants to adjust. 16 settings is, you know, it's pretty darn good. So, yeah, I do see slight difference between shaping a little bit, just a little bit smaller footprint, but I can tell the face is a little bit deeper too.
Yeah. That was your best ball speed, I think.
Definitely launched a little lower.
A little bit on that. As
So that one felt really good. Like I felt it was great contact. It felt like it had that. It felt like it had that spring effect almost off the face, where it just kind of launched off of there. Tried to kind of get under that one a little bit so I could launch it higher, and then went over there.
Yeah, same distance, same numbers, sort of face open, but.
That might be the over the correction. Oh, look at those two shots.
I'm sure James will have a comment on online.
He's already had one on me.
I know he did. Yeah, I see that. Thanks, James. Yeah, more ball speed, good launch.
That one should be good.
Yeah.
That's what those last two swings were supposed to be.
Yeah, well, this last swing, of course, right here was, I think, maybe one of the best, certainly the best numbers we've seen yet, but we'll look at that.
That's going to turn over hard left. I hit it hard.
Yeah, good ball speed. But talking again a little bit about the adjustability, hit one more shot here if you want.
Yeah.
The key to a fitting is having adjustability. It's the variabilities that we do have that we can work on. So, for instance, as we talk about the setup you have in your hand, this is a stock setup. Now, stock meaning it's 45.5 inches. But we also talk about, well, do I need 45.5 inches? Do I want 45 or in some combination of it? So the weights are still interchangeable, and there are weight kits that you can purchase separately to change those. But you can also, when you come in for a fitting, we dial that in and say, hey, I need this weight. So we have this swing weight. We'll put it in this position. We've got this setting on it. And with that, then we can order that exact thing.
Yep.
So we know that we're getting the right type of weight for it as well. Quick example, I was doing a fitting with a gentleman who had purchased a club, and it was not a Titleist club, but it had two 12-gram weights where there should have been a 12 and a 3.
Oh.
So overall, the weight of the club itself was an E0, and those that kind of know swing weighting know that's extremely heavy. So he's having a really tough time kind of moving that club,
right?
Not to mention getting any launch or any spin on it. And that's where the first thing I'm looking at with this is kind of looking at the club going, how do we have that much weight? It was purchased as a used club that way. So someone had it at that.
Someone switched it, yeah.
And so those are the things that we want to look for. What is the right length for you? What is the right weight for you?
You can get all those things with, I mean, they do a great job too, offering all those things for you guys.
So as an example with this, say, we know you have maybe a little bit of an inside-out, predominant inside-out pattern. So what we might want to do with this is we might want to put the weight a little bit more towards the toe. So something you'll notice with, as an example, if I have the center weight on the TSR, the center weight right here is actually toeward. And that's the same sort of thing that we get on this, is that the center weight is actually a little bit more towards the toe. If you're looking at here, this weight right here is just a little bit more toe.
I see that.
In the center position. Now, that's a design feature.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we can adjust with this. The same is true of the GT3 Fairway woods.
Yeah.
And being able to put a little bit of weight. I like to talk about that weight as a mass accelerator, a ball speed accelerator, not necessarily a shape shifter in
not
terms of
necessarily
your
center
flight.
of gravity, but like
Right.
you add a little bit more mass. Say your predominant miss is on the heel.
Yes.
You could move the weight to the heel, and then those heel misses are going to perform better because there's a little bit more mass behind that spot. Is kind of what I know I've heard fly fitters say something along that effect with some of these clubs that have those changeable weights.
And one of the things about that is if we get ball speed, we're going to get more distance out of it, generally speaking. This is really neat too, because when we start talking about where I put that weight, there's not enough weight in a driver, of any driver, that can change so dramatically that it'll just completely change your shot. Like if I hit it in the same spot, it'll just go straight right versus straight left. So we want to be clear, this can definitely help with the pattern that develops, and that's one of the things that we look at.
But if you're a slicer, you're not going to get put this weight in the heel or something and crank it, upright, and you're not going to suddenly just hit this big draw.
Yeah.
But it'll help curb and fight that tendency.
Yeah.
Of the big slice, I guess.
Well, one of the, we talk about this all the time. Some companies, they'll have on their clubs essentially like draw, put the weight in here for draw, put it in here for fade. There is an element of that is true. That also we just have to take into account is like how the club's moving.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got a club head, a shaft, and the person swinging it too.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick look at the.
Look at that dispersion circle.
A little bit on that.
We're covering
now,
the entire grounds of St. Andrews with that one.
Yeah, for that we have 4 shots out here, and I know we have a little bit, there's a few that are a little wider on that one. But also, if we're talking about, shots that are a little bit wider, we also look at these 3 right here.
Yeah, there were 3 really good ones.
There are, and so this isn't to dismiss the shots that are outside. We may need a more fine tuning with this.
Yeah, right.
And that's something that, say we found more ball speed in this, and overall we did. If you look at the numbers, you have the same sort of launch and about the same sort of spin. We have about the same sort of carry distance, although the 2 is maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we also have a little bit more ball speed. So that's something that I look at and say, well, can I get, as an example, can I get that launch up? If that launch comes up, I might carry it a little further, and I might hit it a little farther.
Yeah, maybe some more spin there too in
yeah,
that regard.
Yeah, and either way, those are some of the things that we look for, regardless of the model. Let's go to the 4.
So I'll let you decide how those weights are oriented, because I know there's the weight ports there. You can play the heavier weight back. I'll let you decide how you want to handle that here.
So,
but we should. We'll note the GT4 has there's 2 weights.
Yes.
That there's a kind of a lighter. Is it 12 and 4? Is that the gram?
No, they're actually one of them's a minus and one of them's a.
Okay.
Well, so in their weight category, there's a standard, and I think the standard I want to say was 9 grams.
Okay.
Or 6 grams.
Well, there's 2 spots to put these weights.
Yeah. So you're right.
Obviously, a heavier weight towards the back creates a little bit more.
Yeah, there's an 11.
Higher launch in MOI. You put that heavier weight forward. Obviously, less forgiveness, probably a little bit lower launching. So the GT4 offers that. And Titleist has said that the GT4 with the heavyweight back can play like a GT 2.5, they said.
That's what they say. And that's the reason I talk about weight as being a mass accelerator, is when the weight does get up front, that can actually increase or decrease some of the things that we're talking about in launch and spin. It's a 3 gram and an 11 gram.
11 and 3, okay.
Yeah.
That was close, 12 and 4.
And so 9 is the standard. So this is the 3 gram is a minus 6 grams.
Oh, I see.
From standard. So that's another thing to discuss, is that the standard weight is a red color on that. So we know that immediately if I need something that's a little bit heavier, I'm going to need the black, which is two
heavier,
grams
2 grams
heavier. Yeah, and that's one of the weights that's in here. The redefined shape is what's kind of going to redefine the GT4 from the TSR4, and they have kind of created a bit more of a slope right in here.
They have.
And that slope right in here on the bottom comes back up a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Which also changes where the weight can be positioned. So when you put more weight back here, it actually stabilizes it a bit more than what they had previously. And so that stabilization creates what they call a GT 2.5,
right,
if you will. So the size of it is still a little smaller in 430 cc.
Yeah.
So there's a look that some people prefer. I would say that this is probably the most classic look, the most pear shape that Titleist offers, and they've offered for a long time. And then with this, I did put the 11 gram weight in back.
In back, okay.
Yeah, I'm looking for stability in this.
Right, and I was starting to launch that. I mean, some of those GT3 shots were a little lower, so this would only, with that weight forward in this club, it would
without spin, yeah,
be pretty low spin and low launching. Yeah. So. See, that is interesting because I hit that off the toe.
Okay.
And I feel like I've hit similar shot. I just felt the face twist a little more.
Okay.
Compared to, again, my miss, like you said, I have the tendency to go into out, and I have the tendency, my miss is typically toe side. And so I've gotten used to feeling that sensation of hitting it off the toe. And so I just felt like the club did a little bit more twisting on that one than I'm used to. But the result was fine.
That was good.
Hopefully I closed the face enough there. Yeah, it's fighting over there. That was a little high face action. Interesting how much spin that got, though. Ooh. That is a disaster.
You got away with it. 296 and.
I don't know if I got a
Well, yeah. I mean, it's on.
I just smothered it.
At St. Andrews. It's over on the.
At St. Andrews, it's okay.
Yeah. It's over on the
on
other
a calm
side.
day.
It's on number 1 over there.
Yeah, yeah. On this particular tee shot, I can hit it as far left as I want to.
Good angle on that sloped green.
See, now I did the other thing.
You mean you do what all us other golfers do? You see one go left and try to make it go right?
Yep, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I felt myself go. That one, though, had to be, I think that's probably the best carry distance of the day.
Let's go look.
Oh, no, I did get one
still
up
not
300.
quite. And even for that is, the white was the GT2, and then in the blue, the light blue here, that was the best. That was in the GT3 for that. Okay. Let's do, there we go. Get some numbers up there. Yeah, again, launch isn't that much different. Spin's not that much different. Carry's not that much different. Maybe a little bit less on the total.
Yeah.
Could have been, because you did have a couple with ball speed, and then, of course, you had just a few that were a little bit less than that.
Right.
But I don't take anything away from that in the moment, because if I go back here and I look at it, that had one of your higher ball speeds at 175.
Yeah,
but it was a smother, so it just kind of fell out of the air really quickly. Yeah.
Same with that one.
But yeah, really interesting is like you have the most control you had was out of the GT2.
Right, and it felt the best to me. It looks, I mean,
yeah.
The 4 shots are probably all in the fairway on most golf holes.
Yeah,
so,
and the biggest thing with these models is that they each kind of represent something that we can maybe go after for someone. Maybe it is someone that doesn't, like, I'll give you a good example of the GT4. This is going to be a model that's going to work well for people that may not have had a driver fitting or purchased a driver in 10 years or more. And the reason is, back then, we didn't necessarily have 460 cc's.
Right.
Size, in terms of this, may be a better look for someone, but it's packed with all the technologies we need. And so when we start looking at adjustability, maybe it is the GT3. But if you're coming from something that was 400, 410, 420, or even 430 from 10 or 15 years ago from a driver, I've done this many, many a times. It's like to try to keep a little continuity between the size, because all of a sudden we throw this giant thing down at the bottom there. It's like it feels like I can feel it up there. It's all over the place. That is one of the reasons why companies make slightly different versions of these to begin with. Also, we're talking about maybe a little bit more of a preferred fade look, right? Maybe this is a little easier to fade. The lie's a little flatter. The weight, and again, where the weight is in the front versus the back, it's a little bit more toward, which helps. So the same thing is true of any of the driver models. Is like you just happen to hit the GT2 maybe a little bit better on that. So then I say, well, let's go to this. What would I do differently with what you've got right there? Well, the first thing I would like to do is probably add a little bit of launch. You know, is the ball speed, can the ball speed get a little better? But even if we keep that same spin, launch still gives us more carry, might give us a little bit more total to that. So that's one of the things that I would change. Let's go back to the 2 and see what happens with that.
Yeah, that's fine with me. That's perfect. So you're going to tell me the initial adjustments, or you're going to?
No.
You're not? Okay.
No.
I know this is what you like to do in the fitting sometimes.
Well, part of that is if I tell you, and then there's this expectancy, is like, if I said I'm going to take the loft down and it goes higher, well, what good does that do you? It might not have been you. It might have been hit location on the club. And that's one of the things that we're looking for. So.
No, fair enough. I understand completely.
Now I just got to think of my numbers.
Thinking of the hosel setting?
Got it, yeah.
He's got it. Never a doubt.
Just have to remember on Titleist, they have this nice little quadrant.
Yep.
So the ones are in kind of standard position, flatter and lower. The 2s are more upright and lower. The 3s are a lie angle that goes upright with more loft, and the 4s go more loft or even flatter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm getting it. I'm getting it.
All right.
So, yeah, we can take that off. We're going to take that off. Take that off. Okay, so that's good. We'll go here, and then we'll go C4.
All right, so we got a new setting.
Yep.
We're back to the GT2.
Yep.
And that was the best performing club for me out of the 3.
I was for the start.
For this particular.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
You know, for these shots anyway. T needs to come back down.
It does.
Yeah, not too bad. I thought I hit one of those hooks like I did with the other clubs, but stayed out there okay. Interesting, interesting. I really don't think it went that far right, but who am I? All right, if that turns back, it should be good. Oh, it didn't turn back.
Still really good carry, even from a perspective on the optimizer. That's basically your optimal numbers, right? That just kind of comes straight across the board. So that
Yeah, my face just must be wide open on those.
No, not necessarily. Because the path is 7 and the face is 8, right? The face and path is a 1 degree, so it's not moving.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a combination of both, right?
Club, the path and the face are
Club's
open.
moving out that way. Yep, correct.
All right, that was a colossal miss hit. We'll see how that goes. Wow.
It was. That
That
ball
was
speed
me
was way
changing
down.
everything to try and get it closer
So-
to 0 on the path and the face.
So
I hit
let's-
that ball, I mean, it could not have been in this dark gray area. It had to be out here somewhere. Probably
let's,
out here.
Let's take the tee down from tree height
Tree height.
to maybe tee height.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Let's even lower.
Tree height to tee height?
Yeah,
Okay.
even lower.
Even lower than
Yeah.
this. I don't want to chunk it. I want to hit the mat.
There you go.
Dangerous game here, Tyler. See, I feel like I hit down on that.
You did. Attack angle looks like it was minus 1.3.
I mean, that is a beautiful ball for the Open Championship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's up there. Just one more, see what happens.
I hit that really good, too.
Yeah, one of your better ball speeds for sure.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Those are, and we call those maybe fairway finders, right? Because they're just so straight and they work really well with that. But one of the things with, you know, you have the ball kind of really teed up. And so there's a lot more variability in how it's going to find that face. You can tee the ball up if there's a purpose, right? Like if you're trying to do something very specific for it.
Yep.
But in general, I don't necessarily like the tee super high because now there's more variability. It's up in the air, and we have to kind of catch that in the right place.
Sure.
You're catching this in the middle of the club face, or at least the ball speed would indicate there's a lot better strike.
Those last two shots?
Yeah, when it's teed down, for sure.
Interesting. Okay. We did get a question
Yeah.
from Robert up there asking about is the GT2 draw bias and then moving up to GT4 a fade bias. We did just talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and we talked about kind of where the center weight is and things.
In the category of where Titleist would describe them, the GT is more draw bias in the 2 and more fade bias in the 4. They're set up that way. They're designed that way. It's where they have the weight. Again, there's also weight on the inside, so it's not like there's stuff that we can't see on the inside of the club head where they put weight as well to kind of make that happen. But I would also look at it from this too. The GT3 is both, right? It's that combination where you're like, well,
with the adjustability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is what we're going to do next, and that is
we are.
We're going to go back to the GT3, and I'm going to
dear.
throw the weight in the toe
Okay.
and see what happens because we talked about that.
We did.
And say, all right, if you don't get to turn it over, now you can try to turn it over, see what happens.
Because there will be the weight where I typically will, where
Right.
my misses are.
And
Okay.
for me, the prediction is that piece of the puzzle is not going to necessarily change ball flight, but I want to see what it does for ball speed.
Okay.
So we'll give it a look, give it a see, and see what happens.
Teed down low enough. Here we go.
And then, all right, there we go.
Tyler, I played an event a couple weeks ago, and there was a long drive contest.
Okay.
So in that event, I was grabbed the longest tees I could, and I lowered my driver loft, and I was just going swinging up like that. So I'm still adjusting to this low tee height
You're still into, yeah, now.
All right, so this is weight in the toe for the GT3. That felt really good. I just don't know if it's turning over. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, that is some ball speed. You got that part right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, hit another one. I'm looking at what the other comment on that in terms of like a fade bias driver. Do fitters use the adjustment settings to affect to a draw to affect that fade? It really depends on what the customer is looking for. As an example, if you were to set yourself up like I have here, this is basically anti-left right now.
Yeah.
So I say that in the general sense of physics. Weight's all the way out there. It's in a flat lie angle. Like, I really have to turn this over hard.
Yeah.
So if I'm in the same position where everything's a little off to the right, and I put things in, you know, and I put them in the draw so that they don't go right, the face angle will still always dictate most of what happens, loft and face angle of any shot. So the loft also changes. It's not a static loft. It's not because the driver says 9 that it's 9. It's how it's moving, how you present the club face, if it's up or down. It's also where you hit it on the face. So if I get a little more inward, I tend to lose a little bit of ball speed and it gets more spinny. And that could be a shot that moves out to the right.
Yeah.
There's the opposite. The other thing that, and we'll see here, you hit a couple more. One of the things that is interesting about putting the weight in the toe is for a guy like you that comes inside out and maybe draws this a bit, this may increase. This really may increase the draw. And
ooh, that was
I say that because now remember, if I put more mass out there, and you're turning it over, you could very well have more turnover with it. Yeah, and so it's not a given or a guarantee. Essentially, I would look for the driver that gets us into the best position for what we want to do with it. And if someone comes in and says, well, I have this fade and I really don't want to, we have to take a look at the technology, but we also have to look at the technique. I mean, for you, your club path is moving out to the right.
Yep.
So if it does, the ball's going to start out right, and there's three things that can happen as it gets out there. Stay straight, move left, or move right.
Or move more right.
Yeah, or move more right.
Right, that's what I'm saying, like off of where it starts. Yeah.
And the same is true if it's moving straight down the target line or left of the target line.
Wow, that's a lot of ball speed for how that felt.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because that was a miss, 100%.
Yeah.
Towards the toe, though. It was a toe miss.
Oh, we should have it. Nope, don't have it. Okay.
It was, I mean, it was out here. And to see it go 175 is actually, I'm surprised by that. Okay, let's try to get a straighter shot here. A little high face, but should be not hooking at least.
It's not bad.
All right. Still out there, but.
Well, what we've done, at least in this sense, is very predictable. They're all over here.
Yeah.
Now, distance-wise, that's carry distance-wise. Here's total. They're all over here.
Hitting him off the golf course.
So, well, that's a part of it. It's something that we look at, right? I put this in B4, which is up 0.75 degrees and flat. So I essentially added, you know, it's at 9.75 degrees, so it's almost 10. And I put it in a flat position with the weight to the toe. I basically said, I'm going to try to get this not to go left. So now, knowing that, release on one.
You want me to swing hard, huh?
Yeah, well, swing hard or, you know, try to get it to turn over and see what happens.
I went after that one.
Okay. Good.
Well, I should just swing harder than every time.
The ball speed was your best so far. The club head speed was you've been at 117. I've seen you at 119 already. That wasn't a hard swing in a sense. That's where I think the technology took over, and you definitely got that.
Yeah.
So when you close the face a little, the launch comes down. Usually, sometimes the spin comes down. I'd like to see what the optimal in this would be, right? Here's the thing. That's why I've always advocated for you to get more loft.
You have, and for those watching, Tyler has been on my case about my driver loft being too low.
Because if you hit that solid with a little bit more launch, that could be the difference of, well, in this case, we're talking about 12 yards.
Right.
But that could be the difference of 5 yards over a bunker.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And to me, the total is going to be more dependent on the environment.
Right, firm fairway that's going to roll out longer than 328. If it's soft like it is right now in Minnesota, it's going to go 315 instead of 328 on this particular shot.
Exactly. And so that's why I would always try to influence the ball in the air as much as I can rather than what's going to happen when it gets down and goes to the ground. As it was put to me by a brilliant customer of mine, there aren't any water hazards in the air.
Yeah,
they're only on the ground.
Yeah.
And so what we really have to do is we have to try to be able to start to miss those things, is to work our way around the hazards on the ground. Trees get there, out of bounds gets theirs, I get that stuff. But if I have that 5 yards that clears that water, totally different ball game. And I'll say, I played in the State Am qualifier a couple months ago. And I don't have a tremendous amount of carry, although it's gotten a lot better with my Titleist. I watched the carry distance on these young kids that hit it a long ways. I watched all their carry distance go 15 yards farther than me, but then still plug, just like mine plugs.
Yeah.
So for me, I would love to get more air time. I would love to keep the ball in the air longer. That's my goal. And so you don't spin the ball necessarily. And because of it, the two types of spins we've talked about are climbing and diving. That's one of the reasons I would try to advocate for more loft.
Because most of my good swings have that diving spin, is what you're saying.
Right. And if we look at it from this perspective, I mean, where are the two straightest and longest drives of the day?
Yeah, that's
they're when you're trying to turn this over, but the physics maybe works against you. So what you get out of it is straighter and farther.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And even from
those two, I was definitely felt like shots where I ripped it over left, and it ended up being
and
straight.
even from a carry distance perspective, you're not carrying that any farther.
No.
So go back to some of the basics. There's 3 parts in a fitting, especially with the driver or with the fairway wood, hybrid irons. But it starts with, in a driver, we're looking at what type of driver best suits you for the way that you play, the way that you swing. It might be something that is fade biased or draw biased. It might be something that has the ability to move that, has adjustability. That's where Titleist really keys in on the market. They can do loft, you can do lie, you can do weight adjustability. All of theirs are very versatile that way.
Yeah.
The second piece of that puzzle, of course, is we talk about shaft. It's important. We want to have something that's stable. We want to have something that works well with what you do. So if you load aggressively or swing aggressive at the top, or maybe you're a little bit more neutral or natural coming down, those are things that we look for in the shaft to help maybe produce a feel or feedback that gets us some consistency with it. So that's another piece of the puzzle. And then, of course, the swing is always going to be there, right? That's a piece of the puzzle that we have to look at. It's kind of the 3 things between the club head, the shaft, and then the swing.
The swing.
Yeah. And so to answer that question about kind of fade bias, draw bias, moving weights and such, we really have to see what the club's doing as well in terms of movement, right? So do you lean in and come down on it? Do you kind of lean back and come up on it? Like if those are things that you do with it, we want to try to find things that complement what you do.
Sure. Yeah, that's ultimately what it's about. So yeah, do you have any other driver testing for me to do here?
I do.
Okay.
So one of the
shafts,
things, I did. I grabbed this is the VF and the UB by Graphite Design. So Tour 80. We've got 2 different shafts. These are slight upcharges, which is a really unique thing with Titleist. These are not, so technically I believe these are $500 MSRP or around that, like $480.
Yeah.
With Titleist, it's just, I think, like $2 or $210. So less than half of the actual cost. Whereas if you were to go buy these and put these in, you're going to pay a lot more for these outright.
Oh, that's cool.
So they've got a deal. They're working in partner with Graphite Design, but they work with all shaft companies. So it's not like, okay, there's another one out there that you can't get. They do a really good job of anything.
Right.
The reason I was going to grab this is because the VF is very, very similar to the profiles of the Ventus as well. But I would say also this is a 6 stiff. It's maybe not as stiff, but it's very, very similar to what you were just swinging.
Okay.
And I just want people to know that sometimes an upcharge shaft like that could make the difference. So we'll try that with you. But The shaft that comes in the portfolio for Titleist right there is really, really good.
Yeah, it is. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, we got, 15 minutes left here, so we'll try this out. I'm curious because I'd like to get something that's a little bit farther, like those maximum shots were with that GT3 build, one we just did, but then as straight as the GT2 was to start. All right.
I'm familiar with this specifically because I actually do have this shaft, and it is so cool because it's so stable. It's just very, very stable. But there's a feel that I think goes along with graphite design.
Interesting.
And it's unique. It's not like many of the others, but
well, I haven't hit a lot of graphite design before in my life, so. Yeah, there's that started out to the right, but it didn't go farther right, which is a step up.
Now that's your second longest carry of the day.
Is it?
Yep.
Oh, 299.6, okay.
Yeah, not bad.
All right, let's try to straighten that out here. That was hit good. Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. You look at, and I would have, Mr. James Tracy would say this, that peak height's really nice, that landing angle's awesome in the 30s there. That's really good.
I like that 100 feet.
35. Yeah, that's got a lot of good rollout on it too.
All right. Knew that was going to end at some point. That face could not have been more open than it was.
It was, and for that's a direction thing. Remember, ball speed, launch, spin, and direction. Ball
it's actually
speed
fascinating. It went that far.
Yeah, it was ball speed was good, launch was good, spin was good. Everything about that was good except for the direction.
Yeah.
Let's turn it. I would say tee it down.
Okay.
And
I know you would.
Yeah, maybe try half the height and just see what happens. Do your normal thing, but at half the, yeah, and see if that changes up what happens.
All right, that'll be interesting. Cause I felt like that was more heel. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot better than I thought. I might ask you to, depending on how this last shot here goes, strike that one before from the record, because we might have a really good dispersion circle if this one's good. Yeah. Yeah, that one over there in, Great Britain.
There?
Yeah.
Right. Like this, there.
Yeah, that one. I like that.
Right. So that's carry. So you're basically looking at the 3 longest carry distances of the day. We're looking at total. We're looking at all 4 of those as being basically the some of the longest of the day. We go back to this in terms of the stats from kind of beginning to end. Our carry was at 286, 81, 86, 90. Now it's at 96. So we haven't necessarily changed the launch or the spin. We kind of been hanging around that 10-degree mark pretty much. This is where I actually added a little bit of loft, right? The C4 and in the position. And then I put this in B4, which is actually 1.5 degrees. So I snuck in.
So it's going a lot higher
up in loft. I basically put this more loft, as flat as I could, weight out to the toe, an anti-left machine that basically just goes higher and farther.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got an Arian there is asking, what's interesting is the higher the club speed, the straighter it goes. I think that's part of the correction of that you were making was allowing me, with sort of my tendency, allowing me to go after it, knowing it wasn't gonna rip over this way, which is sometimes what happens.
Arlen brings up a great point, and for me, this is something that I talk about with customers as well. Sometimes we get customers, many times, we as golfers tend to think Like, I want to kind of steer this and guide this where I want it to go.
I definitely am guilty of that.
And I am too, no doubt. Like, but the best players in the world don't try to steer and guide a driver. They try to hit it as straight as possible, as far as possible. Period. Done. End of story. It's not, oh, can I turn this over that bunker? Because at those club head speeds, a little is a lot.
Yeah.
And for me, the way I look at it, and I've said this multiple times, the harder I swing, the straighter and farther it goes, because they're in connection with one another. Faster club head speeds means ball speeds, means distance. And then also the straight part of this is, I'm not trying to maneuver something.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get it to go as straight as possible. And watching Larry Bobka, who we've all got to see on the YouTube stuff, but I mean, I get to see him nearly every day. His comment to a lot of his fittings is the same thing. For almost 20 years, he's worked with the best players in the world with the elite equipment. And the one thing they all do better than pretty much anyone else is just hit that thing as fast as they can forward.
Yeah.
That's all that they're not trying to get into this. I want to turn it and curve it. So I do think finding as fast as you can get the club head to move with balance is the best possibility of getting your best distances. Even if we're a little offline, would 10 yards farther, but maybe a little bit more offline matter? Yeah, because it could just be a different club. That could be past the tree that you're always around that tree and underneath that tree. You might be past that tree now. Or saying, well, this is the difference between putting a 50-degree wedge in my hand that has more spin versus a pitching wedge that doesn't have enough spin, so I can't hold a green.
Right. No, yeah.
The same is true even if we're talking about longer shots and we say, oh, well, you know, I have to hit a hybrid into there. Well, what if it's all of a sudden it's a 6-iron and not a 4-hybrid?
Right.
That might have a better chance at spin and holding. Yeah. So from a philosophical standpoint, absolutely.
Yeah. To Robert's point, am I putting this in the bag? After those shots, I'm considering it. I know you might even make even more tweaks to me if we had time, but
yeah, I'd probably still go with a 6X in that.
Well, this is an S?
Oh yeah.
Oh, this is an S.
Yeah, the X is up front. I just didn't have time to grab it. I just knew that we had this here.
Interesting.
But also from a stiffness profile. So what Graphite Design did with this is they essentially made this one of the stiffest profiles they've ever made. There are some that are tour only, handmade only, like uber expensive, $800, $900, where you can get them out of Graphite Design's factory. They'll build them by hand for you. This is a production, but trust me, there's nothing production about it. They're using the same sort of high quality materials. They are really looking at kind of competing with this other Fujikura shaft with a V on it.
Yeah.
And that is where the stability comes in. So now maybe with this, we saw more variability. You didn't see it with that.
No, I didn't. No.
How did that feel?
It felt good. It really did feel good. It feels like it fits my swing pretty well. Even the fact that it's an S, it's almost like it felt like an X.
It's a very stiff profile.
So, yeah, but it does go to show you, like, you know, as we kind of start to wrap here, but the GT driver line, we did so many things today, right? I mean, this is almost a sample driver fitting in a sense, right? Of going through the drivers. We hit each model and then you tweak things and we did all these things. This is kind of what a driver fitting would look like for GT if anybody watching wanted to do it. Testing different settings, shafts, we did the heat. I mean, we tested everything you could test here, really.
Right.
And then we found something for me that, you know, that's pretty close to optimal for what I do. So, I mean, go get fit and do the same thing I do.
Yeah,
kind of
having an opportunity to look at it like this is really what everyone should do. Number one, we talk about price. These are, you know, they're north of $600 a driver now.
Yeah.
If we're going to spend that money, we have free fittings with purchase.
Yep.
And so if we're going to get this done, let's make sure that we not only invest the money, but the time in making sure we have the right club. The other thing about Titleist that draws me into that as a brand for customers overall is the increased adjustability. Basically, the ability to open and close a face is really good if that's the only thing we needed. in some other companies' driver models, where you can move weight in many of these others as well. We have the ability to do both. I think Titleist has capitalized on the TS, the Speed project, many years ago, in creating a much, much better metal wood.
Yeah,
all the way across.
They are so much better than they were.
I absolutely think the TSI was better than the TS. I absolutely believe the TSR is better than the TSI. And right now, we have to get this in our hands. I literally haven't hit it outside of a couple shots. But I believe where this direction is going in terms of capitalizing on technology again.
Yeah.
So if this, and this, it's going to, there are going to be differences. So if you're a guy that's had a Titleist and you got the TS sitting there, it's time to look.
It is.
It's really time to look.
Yeah. I mean, I remember back in the 915, 917 days, there was, you know, a lot of extra spin and noise with the Titleist drivers, and now it's they've really cleaned them up, optimized them. GTs, it's something to be taken seriously, I think. So, I mean, right there, everything's
so he says, well, is this something to go into your bag? Well, I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Maybe stay tuned. Maybe I
see here.
add it in the bag.
Is this the one you're taking home? Yeah.
Could be.
Could be.
I don't know. But
that could be the one you take home.
All right. Well, we'll wrap there. If there's any comments or questions, I know we had one right now asking kind of about, you know, what loft is GT4. Scroll back and we hit the GT4 and GT3 and GT2 in various different settings. Just go back and listen to Tyler's explanation on those.
Everything was in 9-degree to start.
Yeah.
And then we made adjustments to the 9-degree head.
Yeah. So, but yeah, another live at lunch here wrapped up. Now you can really eat lunch, Tyler.
Yes.
Thank you for everybody for watching, joining, engaging in the chat. We'll be back again. We're doing Tuesdays at noon here on the YouTube channel every single week. So stay tuned, and we'll see you back next week. Tyler, thank you for joining today as well.
Keep your grooves clean and stay razor sharp.
At Second Swing, we know it's not you, it's your clubs. That's why we offer over 100,000 new and used golf clubs and a team of experts who help you find the perfect option for both your swing and your budget. Customize your bag with a tour-level fitting, then trade in your current clubs to save even more on your upgrades. Change your game in store or online at secondswing.com. At Second Swing,